Hillary, new reaction to the FBI announcement that the Bureau is reviewing new emails tied to the Hillary Clinton email scandal. We are now, of course, just 10 days from Election Day, although millions of Americans have already voted. Donald Trump and Republicans are citing the renewed email investigation as proof of Clinton's unsuitability for the presidency, saying another shoe could drop in weeks or months after the election. Clinton's camp is livid at the timing, demanding the FBI essentially put up or shut up. And sources are saying the FBI chief and his boss, the Attorney General, are not on the same page. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Carl Cameron is with the Trump campaign in Phoenix. Just wrapped up a speech there Donald Trump did. Jennifer Griffin is covering the Clinton team in Miami, apparently at a nightclub. But we begin with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry with the latest on the FBI investigation. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Bret. Eyebrows were already raised, of course, about political interference when Bill Clinton hopped on that plane with Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Tonight, new questions about whether the Obama Justice Department is trying to protect Hillary Clinton. An FBI source confirmed to Fox that top Justice Department officials tried to stop Director James Comey from informing Congress he was reigniting the investigation of Hillary Clinton, warning Comey it violated two department policies, commenting on an ongoing probe, and taking action that could influence an election. The FBI source said while Comey reports to Attorney General Loretta Lynch, he does not play by cautious mother may I rules, and took Lynch at her word.
We take it seriously and we handle it independently, thoroughly, fairly.
A senior law enforcement official added Comey felt compelled to act because the FBI found over 10,000 of top Clinton aide Huma Abedin's emails from a laptop she has shared with estranged husband Anthony Weiner. The LA Times is reporting the new Abedin emails were not to and from Clinton. And top Democrats in Congress jumped on that today to write to Comey and Lynch demanding a more complete accounting of, quote, information from your career investigators and prosecutors in order to debunk these conspiracy theories and correct the public record. The senior law enforcement official insisted the FBI is looking at evidence pertinent to their probe of Clinton. And Republicans note after all the heat Comey took after saying there was evidence of potential violations of law by Clinton, but not actually filing charges, he would not risk a second major embarrassment.
I think this is probably more substantial, and that is why he has put it out now.
Republicans praising Comey now were hammering him this summer for allegedly having a lower bar for average Joes.
They might be on their way to jail, and they probably should.
My conclusion was and remains no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case.
Democrats like Donna Brazile, now the interim DNC chair, declared in July Republicans were damaging the rule of law by attacking Comey. Well, today, Brazile retweeted stories savaging the FBI director's judgment and complaining about, quote, the damage Comey's bad timing could do. And all this happening as WikiLeaks, yes, released around 22 of John Podesta's emails, including one in 2015, where liberal activist Neera Tanden told Podesta, quote, sometimes HRC and WJC, as in Bill Clinton, have the worst judgment. That's something we heard from someone else on the left, Bernie Sanders, back in the primaries. Bret?
Okay, Ed, thank you. Hillary Clinton's allies say the FBI decision plays right into the hands of Donald Trump, as you heard. The Democrat nominee is now demanding the Bureau release the information it has immediately. Right now, Clinton is at a star-studded campaign event in Miami, and that is where we find correspondent Jennifer Griffin tonight. Good evening, Jennifer.
Good evening, Bret. J-Lo and Mark Anthony are about to take the stage with Hillary Clinton here in Miami. When Hillary Clinton landed in Florida, that is when she made her first remarks today about the FBI director's explosive announcement.
I'm sure that some of you may have heard about a letter that the FBI director sent out yesterday. Well, if you're like me, you probably have a few questions about it.
Blindsided by the FBI director with just 10 days left until the election, the crowd of supporters at the canvassing event in Daytona Beach booed when Hillary Clinton mentioned FBI Director James Comey.
It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election. In fact, it's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling because voters deserve to get full and complete facts. And so we called on Director Comey to explain everything right away, put it all out on the table.
Clinton, whose momentum was pointing towards an election night win, warned her supporters of complacency.
Like any campaign, there have been ups and downs and ups and downs, but I got to tell you, I feel so motivated, so excited, so ready.
During a conference call with reporters, Clinton's campaign chairman demanded answers from Comey.
Director Comey was the one who wrote a letter that was light on facts, heavy on innuendo, knowing full well what Republicans in Congress would do with it. It's now up to him, who owes the public answers to the questions that are now on the table.
Huma Abedin was not traveling with Clinton on her campaign plane today, but aides say the campaign stands behind her.
Jennifer, thank you. Have fun. Donald Trump is making the resurgent FBI probe the centerpiece of his rejuvenated campaign. The nominee has just finished a rally you saw here on Fox in Phoenix. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron is in Arizona tonight. Good evening, Carl.
Hi, Bret. It was a raucous one-hour speech, a stem winder, in which he said that the Justice Department is now at war with the FBI, arguing that the Justice Department is trying to cover up for what he called Hillary's, quote, criminal activity.
Criminal action was willful, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful. Hillary set up an illegal server for the obvious purpose of shielding her criminal conduct from public disclosure and exposure.
Trump slammed Clinton and cracked wise about the husband of Clinton's closest confidant, Huma Abedin, Anthony Weiner, who's under investigation for sexting with a minor.
She's got bad instincts. Well, she's got bad instincts when the emails are on Anthony Weiner's wherever.
Having accused the FBI of corruption for closing the case, Trump blasted Clinton for criticizing its reopening.
Hillary Clinton tried to politicize this investigation by attacking and falsely accusing the FBI director of only sending the letter to Republicans. Another Clinton lie. As it turned out, the letter was sent to both Republican and Democratic leaders in Congress.
The Clinton camp has since said she misspoke, having not seen the second page with a list of Democratic lawmakers who did receive it. Trump began his speech with a lengthy attack on Obamacare, saying that premiums are going to go up, but he's going to repeal it, giving voters a reason to support him, and then spent much of his speech blasting Hillary Clinton, again, as his aides have said, trying to suppress her vote for the email scandal. Bret?
Carl Cameron, live in Phoenix. Carl, thank you. Let's get some analysis of the FBI decision to not only ramp up this investigation, but to go public with it. Shannon Coffin is a former Justice Department Assistant Deputy Attorney General. That's not Shannon. That's Shannon. Under President George W. Bush, former legal counsel for Vice President Dick Cheney. Ron Hosko is president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund and former Assistant Director of the FBI. Thank you both for being there. We got it right. Shannon, what about this decision, how it's rolled out, and what's behind it?
Well, look, we know we were in a very abnormal situation from the beginning when Jim Comey decided to announce, that he decided there would be no prosecution, yet rolled out all the evidence against Hillary Clinton. Now he's come up with something, and Donald Trump may very well be right that there's something in there that made the FBI director look at this and say, "Oh no, I can't let that come out after the election." So to preserve his own reputation, or what's left of it, he likely decided to roll that out now.
But what's there? But do you buy that this is just kind of making sure that nothing comes out after the election, and that he would actually move forward if there wasn't something, at least somebody looked and said, well, this is somewhat substantial?
Yeah, I think the director is once again put in this position where he's going to try to thread a needle. He's walking on this treacherous, slippery path with snakes on both sides, all ready to inject venom. Unless they recognize a fellow snake. And Comey started down this path because Loretta Lynch disabled herself in her meeting with Bill Clinton. So she helped put him on this path of extraordinary transparency. Hence his testimony to Congress, hence his statement back in July. And here we are again, and if the FBI recovers this, what's supposed to be thousands of emails, They can't analyze that in a day. And I think it's Comey who's hanging out there who feels like he has the responsibility to Congress to tell them we have to reopen.
Speaking of which, my interview with the Attorney General at the end of February, here's what I asked.
What's most important is to follow the facts, follow the law, and come to an independent conclusion as to what may or may not have happened.
You said that the independent investigators and agents will make the recommendation, but the decider of whether to go forward is you, right?
Well, we'll see what evidence develops and what facts develop, and we'll follow those to their natural conclusion.
Well, here's a senior DOJ official anonymously talking to the Washington Post. Director Comey understood our position. He heard it from Justice leadership. It was conveyed to the FBI, and Comey made an independent decision to alert the Hill. He's operating independently of the Justice Department, and he knows it. But to Ron's point, Shannon, because of that meeting on the tarmac in Arizona, they didn't have any option.
The Attorney General's credibility on this issue was blown out of the water. So, and of course, President Obama's Justice Department leadership doesn't want this to happen right now. That's not at all surprising. You know, it's a bit ironic, though, Bret, that the Clintons are complaining about this October surprise when Bill Clinton was a beneficiary of one in the 1992 election.
Yeah, that's 1992 when Lawrence Walsh, the independent counsel for Iran-Contra,
4 days before the election, indicts the Secretary of Defense, Caspar Weinberger, leaving the Bushes scrambling with no chance of answering. And what you didn't hear then from the Clintons was that the independent prosecutor was overstepping his bounds and politicizing an election.
Yeah, so it's happened before. The question is, you know, what we know about what we're learning from these WikiLeaks emails. For example, email chain 5, Cheryl Mills, she emails to John Podesta, and at the bottom of the email says to the John, as a reminder, government email is maintained as federal records. In other words, the whole thing's set up. If you're going to send me something that you don't want obtained by the government records, send it on this other email. And it says it at the bottom of the screen. Comey said in the testimony and when he presented that they couldn't find intent. Do you think they're going to find intent in these emails?
Well, certainly they're going to be looking for some sort of a smoking gun in there. They're always looking for a smoking gun because when you have people who are in this close of collaboration with each other, the likelihood of them flipping on that conversation that's just a private, unrecorded conversation is low.
But when you hear the LA Times saying there's no emails to or from Hillary Clinton, first of all, I don't know how they know that, judging by our sources, but what do you think of that?
I think that's way premature to know that. From what I'm hearing and what's been reported out there, we're talking about thousands and thousands of emails. Even if the FBI has what their previous review was automated, fully automated, now they're going to have to suck these new emails into the same system and start to compare this stack with the previous stack and say, okay, these we've already seen, it's covered. Now you have to look at everything you haven't seen and analyzed and sent to the intelligence community to say, do you say it's classified? Do you say it's classified? What do we have here that's new?
Shannon, even if they don't find what we're talking about here, the smoking gun, you have this code, U.S. Code, 18 U.S. Code 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. Whoever willfully, unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys, or attempts to do so with the intent to do so, takes or carries away any record, proceeding, map, book, paper, document, or other thing filed or deposited with any clerk or officer of any court in the United States, continues on, shall forfeit his office, be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. This deals directly in U.S. Code, does it not?
It's a felony charge.
Just to have the private server.
That's right. The server itself was the crime. It's the server, stupid. It's kind of what I've been saying from the beginning on this. Forget about the classified information. It's Hillary Clinton setting up a server for the purpose of circumventing all of the federal records laws and the email, Cheryl Mills' email that says, reminder, your official emails are preserved, which the negative implication is, so send it on the side. Those emails should have been preserved from the beginning as well. And circumventing that entire system and concealing concealing these emails and destroying 30,000 of these emails is itself a crime.
But quickly, do you think that Comey is here because he's gotten so much internal pressure inside the FBI about the original decision or how it was handled?
I think there is internal pressure. I think there is internal dissent. I don't think it is on a wide scale. I do think, and I've been told, that the team that investigated this, that they had a common approach and they agreed with the ultimate result, which was not to recommend prosecution. But I think there are louder and louder voices of dissent, including from retired agents groups that I participate in, because of how he went out in front of this. That is usually the province of the Department of Justice to say, we recommend or we're going to. But again, we go back to Loretta Lynch shooting her foot off in a meeting with Bill Clinton and making this look more political than it should have, hence Comey into the breach.
And Donald Trump using it at every speech. Ron, Shannon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On a special Saturday primetime edition of Special Report, part 3 of my interview with Donald Trump and Mike Pence. But up next, a special look at the mysteries surrounding the Clinton Foundation. Iowa is not only the first voting state in the caucus and primary season, it is now a battleground for the general election. Correspondent Peter Ducey has spent the last couple of days in Iowa talking to voters about the state of the race and the latest news from the FBI.
In the suburbs of Des Moines, the Trump team is trying to take advantage of the FBI's October surprise, and volunteers are noticing something.
Everyone I've talked to wants to talk about the emails.
Everyone we spoke to on the streets of Iowa's biggest city today knew all about the latest development in the Clinton email investigation. But it's already too late for many to change their minds.
We already voted.
Already voted?
Yes.
Voted a couple weeks ago. We are in the process of sending in our ballot right now.
No, I voted for Hillary, and I still would vote for Hillary.
As for those who haven't voted yet, the email revelation has Trump and Gary Johnson supporters digging in their heels, seeming to make it more difficult for Clinton to convince people who aren't already on her side to switch.
Hillary's emails definitely reinforces my disdain of her.
It reinforces it. I believe she should have been indicted before, and I still believe that. And this just reinforces it.
I think she's guilty all along, and about time they, do something about it. I mean, I'm a Trump supporter, so I hope they do something about it.
But there are others here happy to dismiss the big news about the Democratic nominee to defend Clinton instead, although without as much enthusiasm as her detractors.
I really hope that this is a blue state this year.
Oh, not at all. No. I mean, given the two choices, short of murder, no. I can't imagine change my mind.
And if you want to talk about what a difference 2 weeks makes, one Trump door knocker told me today it was a lot easier to go talk to undecided voters this Saturday after that FBI news broke than it was 2 Saturdays ago after the news about Trump's decade-old hot mic moment broke. And that hot mic moment, by the way, something zero voters mentioned to us today. Bret?
Peter Ducey live in Des Moines. Peter, thank you. The closing argument for Donald Trump and Mike Pence. I talked to both of them Friday. More from that interview on the issues when we come back. Top story tonight on this special Saturday primetime edition of Special Report. The FBI's shocking announcement Friday of new emails which may pertain to the Hillary Clinton email scandal, and the FBI is now investigating. 2 hours before that news came out, I spoke with Donald Trump and his running mate Mike Pence at Trump Tower in New York. I asked the two men about the use of the phrase rigged system, and we went back and forth on other issues as well. In part 3 of our interview, I asked the GOP ticket about our series Issues That Matter, the top 10 issues important to Americans polled, and which issues they would try to tackle in their first 100 days in office. Mr. Trump says number 1 on his list, repealing and replacing Obamacare.
It's a disaster. It can never work. She wants to try and get it done, Hillary. She wants to try and save it. It can't be saved. It was no good from day one. It'll never be any good. We have to help our vets immediately. We have to secure the border. Drugs are pouring across, forgetting even about the people that are coming in illegally. Drugs are pouring across our border. People in places like North Carolina and New Hampshire, you can buy drugs, you can buy heroin for less than candy. And kids are buying it for less than candy. And what's happening to those communities and those states and our whole country, our children, our kids are being poisoned with drugs. We're going to secure the border. We have to build up. We have to immediately start with our very depleted military. We have jets that are so old they don't even make the parts for them anymore, Bret. There's so many things to do, but I would start by we have to get health care in line. If you look at a great place like Arizona, 116% increase in premiums. 116%. People are going bankrupt trying to pay for health care. And by the way, the health care is no good because deductibles are so high, you can't use it. So it's a tremendous problem. And Gruber, Jonathan Gruber, the architect, the wise guy, who said the American people are stupid, well, he's going to find out they're not stupid.
Governor Pence, I mean, you know that the window is fairly short in a new administration to be able to get things moving. On that list that Mr. Trump just mentioned, in the first 100 days, how do you kind of get all that stuff going?
Well, the first thing we do is we make sure that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States, and then we re-elect Republican majorities in the House and Senate. What you have here is a leader. And he's cast a vision to make America great again by rebuilding our military, getting this economy moving again, not with the tax increases that Hillary Clinton's advocating, but by cutting taxes across the board, repealing Obamacare, having the kind of trade deals that are negotiated in a way that puts the American worker first, and having the kind of appointments to the Supreme Court that will uphold our Constitution in the tradition of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. All that takes is new leadership in the White House, renewed leadership on Capitol Hill. And I promise you, having gotten to know this man over the last 3 months, the energy and the leadership that he's going to provide is going to change the direction of Washington, D.C. and our country quicker than you could possibly imagine.
One of the top issues in our list that is not talked about a lot is education. From a Trump-Pence ticket, what is the education system look like?
Well, we talk about it a lot. Number one, choice. We're going to give choice because that's really needed, and really needed in the inner cities where there essentially is no education. If you want to know the truth, it's horrible. And number one. Number two, we're going to end Common Core. Common Core is a total disaster, and we're going to bring education local. What we have right now is crazy. It's being run out of Washington, D.C. by bureaucrats, many of whom don't care. They just get big fat checks. And you look at where our education is worldwide, Bret. Our education is so bad. It's so bad. Now, we're number one in one thing, cost per pupil. By far, we blow everyone away. As far as the quality of the education, we're at 28 and 29. You take a list of 30, we're at 28 and 29. You have Sweden, you have Denmark, you have Norway, you have China, you have Japan. You have countries that are spending much less money and doing a much better job. So we would end Common Core, bring education local.
One of the very first things Donald Trump and I talked about was his belief that education is a state and local function. Ending Common Core is born of that principle, but his passion to give parents the ability to choose where their children go to school regardless of their income, their area code, I think is an idea whose time has come. I think the best quality he has is he's someone who's very impatient with failure.
Also on this list is climate change. If you're a millennial who thinks that climate change is a problem and believes the scientists who say it is, why would you vote for a Trump-Pence ticket?
Because we want clean air, we want safety, and we want clean water, crystal clean water. But we can't give hundreds of billions of dollars away to groups that we don't even know where the money is going. It's crazy. And our businesses can't compete with businesses from other countries because of what they're mandated to do. They just can't do it. We have to build our businesses back up. Now, climate change. Some people agree and some people don't. Both groups are very vocal. Some agree, some don't. I consider myself to be somewhat of an environmentalist, believe it or not, but I get tremendous accolades for what I do and the work I do. But we can't afford to be giving billions and billions of dollars away and restricting our businesses when other countries that we're competing against don't have those restrictions.
So when Hillary Clinton says you don't believe in science, and she uses this on the trail.
I don't think most Americans want the kind of divisive and dark change Donald Trump is offering, denying the science of climate change.
And she points back to you saying China is making this up. What do you say?
Well, I'm a total believer in science, but nothing's very conclusive. You had meetings, if you remember, 6-7 years ago, where the various people in charge of climate change were emailing each other about what a joke this whole thing is. I mean, look, I'm not knocking anything. I'm just saying we have a country that's in trouble. We have $20 trillion in debt, doubled under Obama's presidency, doubled. In a period of 8 years, it doubled. And we can't afford to be doing the kinds of things that he's getting us into because our businesses cannot compete. We need jobs. We have a trade deficit of $800 billion. We can't do that.
I think what's happening out there as the election continues to approach is people are seeing what a clear choice this is, Bret. This is the clearest choice in a national election in my lifetime. And more Americans every day are choosing strength and are choosing to support Donald Trump as the next president.
Last thing while I have both of you here. If you win, what will you do about Paul Ryan, who obviously you had some problems with throughout this campaign? Would you work with him or work to replace him as Speaker?
I will work with Paul Ryan. I'm very disappointed in leadership because I really believe we'd be winning by a lot. That we have to fight against Republicans is absolutely insane and ridiculous, so I'm very disappointed. But I will work with everybody. I'm not just talking about Paul Ryan. I'll get things through.
He's a friend of yours. What do you think about these Republicans who are running away from your ticket?
You're building that up too much. Let me tell you, we have tremendous Republican support.
We do.
But there are a few people at the top that have not been properly supported.
Some of them are coming back now,
and don't
saying
forget,
they will support.
They should be better than they are.
And Bret, this is a movement of the American people. He's won over independents all across this country who are tired of gridlock in Washington. He's won over many Democrats who are tired of liberal policies in our nation's capital and trade deals that are driving jobs out of our country. But make no mistake about it, the overwhelming majority of Republicans are already there. But our message to the rest is if you believe we need to rebuild our military, if you believe we can revive this economy through tax cuts and repealing Obamacare, if you believe that we need to have strict construction as to the Supreme Court of the United States, our message is it's time for Republicans to come home and elect Donald Trump as the next president of the United States.
Brett,
so that's the close change.
Let me just say, look at Utah. I love the people of Utah. I have great relationships in Utah. Now, if for some reason we lose Utah, that could have a very devastating impact on the overall. Now, what happens? Forgetting about everything else, our country will never be the same because we will not get to pick Supreme Court justices in the mold of Justice Scalia. And we have 20 unbelievable people picked, vetted by Federalist Society and Heritage. These will be great justices of the Supreme Court. Now, and I will pick only from that list. So, because they were a little concerned because I was never a politician, so maybe he'll go out and pick a liberal. Okay, that's not happening. Only from that list I'm going to pick. Only. We're not going outside that list. Now, we could have 2, 3, 4. There's even a scenario where you could have 5 picks this next, probably more than any other president. If the incredible people of Utah, they're incredible people, I know the people of Utah, if they go enough for this character that's running all over the state and we lose the state of Utah, that's devastating because that means we're probably going to lose the Supreme Court of the United States for 60 years. By that time, it won't matter because at the end of 60 years, we won't have a country left.
We will cover every stop along the way. Mr. Trump, Governor Pence, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bret.
Next up, the panel on the campaign and what the FBI's big announcement means for the final stretch.
It's pretty strange to put something like that out, such little information, right before an election. In fact, it's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling. We've called on Director Comey to explain everything right away, put it all out on the table, right?
Hillary has nobody to blame but herself for her mounting legal troubles. Hillary set up an illegal server for the obvious purpose of shielding her criminal conduct from public disclosure and exposure.
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton today reacted to the big FBI news, continuing an investigation looking into these emails found on Anthony Weiner and Uma Abedin, his then wife, their laptop. And tens of thousands, or more than 10,000, we're told, emails. However, news breaking right at this moment, this is from Michael Isikoff just moments ago. We don't have this confirmed independently, but here's how he writes it. As of Saturday night, the FBI had still not gotten approval from the Justice Department for a warrant that would allow agency officials to read any of the newly discovered Abedin emails, and therefore are still in the dark about whether they include any classified material that the Bureau has not already seen. Quote, "We do not have a warrant," a senior law enforcement official said. Discussions are underway between the FBI and the Justice Department as to the best way to move forward. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor of Real Clear Politics. And look at this, Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill in Washington, D.C., co-host of The Five, and Charlie Hurt, political columnist for The Washington Times. All right, Steve. So Isikoff's saying they don't have a warrant. Washington Post says Justice Department said to Comey, don't do it, but there was not a lot of juice there because Loretta Lynch had the meeting with President Clinton on the tarmac. What do you make of all this?
I'm not at all surprised that Loretta Lynch doesn't want Jim Comey doing this after her meeting, but as you discussed with your two panelists earlier, it's part of what led him to go public and be as transparent as he's been. There are two other, I think, interesting considerations. It was reported today that Uma Abedin has told friends and associates that she doesn't know how these emails ended up on Anthony Weiner's computer. That's interesting. It's also apparent that she contradicted herself, or that the existence of these emails on a separate device may have contradicted sworn testimony that she provided, where she told the FBI that she only, or in sworn depositions, that she only used these specified devices to communicate via email, potentially with Secretary Clinton. So there are all sorts of, I think, potential problems for Uma Abedin specifically in this. But on the broader question, the Clinton attacks on Comey are really tough to understand. I mean, on the one hand, she has to defend herself somehow. On the other hand, going after James Comey, the FBI director who clearly went out of his way to avoid prosecuting her before, who works for Barack Obama, attacking him as some kind of Republican stooge just doesn't work. It's just not going to sell.
Juan, I should point out that graphics that AP Isikoff wrote for Yahoo for that piece that's posting now. Now, to Steve's point, Juan, the same person who went to these great lengths to hide these emails and kind of stall with Congress is now calling for transparency and let it all out. Well, they have to know. They can't put all those things out. There's more than 10,000 of them.
No, but I think what the argument is, and one is in terms of the investigative technique and the other is political. So let's do investigative technique first. I think that her argument would be you had to make this judgment on the basis of some alarming information. Otherwise, it's not justified coming so close before an election and politicizing the FBI. So what is the basis for the judgment that you made? The political basis would be, right now, that campaign is in shock. They don't know exactly what happened or where it came from, but they know they got hit. And they're a little bit on the ropes right now. So you can punch back, and the person to punch back at here, interestingly, is not Trump, but Jim Comey. And Comey, of course, even as you heard from your earlier guest, that a lot of people thought he went far in trying to explain the basis and that he had been unreasonably careless earlier before announcing he wasn't making a decision. He was making a decision not to go forward with prosecution. Now he comes to the point where people are saying, well, let's hear from you again. Why are you in hiding, Mr. Comey? So I think that's part of Podesta. John Podesta, the campaign chair, has been the principal punching. Now here comes Clinton today.
You know who's in hiding or haven't seen is Uma Abedin. And Donald Trump noticed that on the trail today.
Is she going to keep Uma Uma's been a problem. Do we agree? Uma's been a problem. I wonder if Uma's going to stay there. And I hope they haven't given Uma immunity, because it seemed that everybody that walked down the sidewalk got immunity. I hope they haven't given Uma immunity.
All right, so let's talk about the politics, how this translates. Does this move the needle a lot in the final days?
Well, I think, at first glance, definitely. And there are a lot of Hillary Clinton would-be voters that just really are never going to vote for Donald Trump, but they really find her appalling, and maybe this will just ultimately turn them off. I think she's going to lose some voters. I've said all along it is so easy to depress her vote. For a lot of people in this country, Donald Trump scares them, but she nauseates them, and I think this is going to keep people home. That said, I do think, and I've said at this table before, James Comey ran a bad investigation. They didn't impanel a grand jury. They didn't search the home. He indicted her politically and laid out a case for her, and then said, which is not in his purview, and it's in the purview of the Department of Justice, no prosecutor would take this case. He is in political hot water or professional hot water. He's having a midlife crisis about this, and I understand that he can't have this leak and then look like he was covering something up. But the Isikoff news is interesting, that when the letter was written, FBI officials internally are saying he didn't know what was in the emails. He will really melt over this, and in the coming days they're going to fight back. It'll be interesting to see what Obama and Biden say. I don't think anyone cares what Lynch has to say, but this is going to be interesting in terms of, we'll see a week from tonight what this did to her polling, but I don't think it helps her. I just don't know that it'll be an avalanche.
Well, one of the people you mentioned, Joe Biden, talked to CNN.
I think the quicker they release the emails for the public to see them, the better off. I have confidence in Hillary. I don't know where these emails came from.
Apparently Anthony Weiner.
Well, oh God. Anthony Weiner. I should not comment on Anthony Weiner. I'm not a big fan.
Boy, I'm not sure that they really want the emails out there, because who knows, even if they haven't seen them, there could be a lot of interesting stuff in there.
Oh, sure. Or they could just be about, yoga and, baby showers.
10,000 of them.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't matter at this point. They're not going to release them. They can't release them at this point. And the Clintons know that, and that's why they can make that demand. But I do think it's kind of interesting, all this attention on Huma. Huma's not the problem here. The problem here is Anthony Weiner. And Anthony Weiner, the only reason that Anthony Weiner is in Huma's life is because the Clintons introduced the two of them together. And I think about this when I think about what we grapple with, why James Comey has done this, and you think about the terrible position